Good afternoon, all, and welcome to another edition of the Sal Greco Show. And I'm your host, Sal Greco. Thank you all for tuning in. Thank you all for showing up in the comments today as well. I hope there's plenty of them. If you're watching us on the Finest Unfiltered Network on YouTube or anywhere else, please hit that like, share, subscribe button, hit that notification button as well. Same on Rumble, hit the like and Rumble button. If you're listening or watching us on X right now, streaming live, please hit that repost button and share this out with all your friends, and especially the low information people in your group, because they definitely need to be informed. A lot has happened in the last few days. A lot has been going on this weekend. I'm going to get right into it, okay? I'm not even gonna wait here. So I think, first of all, we learned about the Tom Donlon suing about the defamation that's going on. So right here, it says in this article that Tom Donlon alleges that after the first lawsuit was filed, Adams flatly told members of a nonprofit business advocacy group that he fired Donlon last fall because he was rapidly deteriorating mentally, according to attendees. Donlon cited news reports about those comments in his legal claim. So there is a lawsuit that has been filed on top of the lawsuit that you learned on just this past Thursday when I had Eric Sanders on, with Tom Donlon now suing Eric Adams and Tarrik Sheppard for defamation. I'm going to get to that in a second. There is breaking news, though, on the presidential front. So I wanted to play this video. This is President Trump just now in the White House talking about a certain former president. So let's just play this.
The witch hunt that you should be talking about is they caught President Obama absolutely cold, Tulsi Gabbard. What they did to this country in 2016, starting in 2016, but going up all the way going up to 2020 in the election. They tried to rig the election and they got caught. And there should be very severe consequences for that. You know, when we caught Hillary Clinton, I said, you know what? Let's not go too far here. It's the ex-wife of a president, and I thought it was sort of terrible. And I let her off the hook, and I'm very happy I did. But it's time to start after what they did to me, and whether it's right or wrong, it's time to go after people. Obama's been caught directly. So people say, oh, you know, a group. It's not a group. It's Obama. His orders are on the paper. The papers are signed. The papers came right out of their office. They sent everything to be highly classified. Well, the highly classified's been released. And what they did in 2016 and in 2020 is very criminal. It's criminal at the highest level. So,
yeah. So what you're hearing there is pretty. I don't know if it's actually going to go through because, you know, Trump does say things and then he doesn't go through with them. But I think he might be serious this time because it's been a few days in a row that he's posting about treason and Barack Obama being treasonous. So be on the lookout for this. And I'll get into this a little bit more on Thursday because, wink, wink, my guest will be Owen Schroyer, the Owen Schroyer from InfoWars. So I'm sure we'll be talking about that. We'll be talking about the Epstein files and everything going on with that. So there'll be more on that in the future because this is just breaking, and I figured we'd play this for the audience because if that is even true, that is unprecedented because this is even bigger than when Biden weaponized Justice Department against Trump, which was all made up stuff anyway. This, on the other hand, looks like there's a lot of teeth to it. A lot of documents were dropped by Tulsi Gabbard. She is the head of the intelligence agencies now in the United States. So this is very interesting. So we'll talk more about that on Thursday. So back to this whole thing in the NYPD. So I want to play this video, and this is the first video, and this is in regards to where this kind of started and also the original lawsuits that were filed by Serena Townsend in regards of the four executives, the four chiefs suing the NYPD.
Former police commissioner Edward Caban resigned last September after federal investigators seized his phone. At the time, the nature of the investigation was unclear, but a new lawsuit claims to shed light. Former Chief of Detectives James Essig alleges in court papers that Caban was selling promotions in exchange for up to $15,000. for which Caban is currently under federal investigation. Essig and 3 other former high-ranking officials filed suit this week against the NYPD, Mayor Adams, and top police brass, describing a culture of corruption and cronyism. Matthew Pontillo, who was the NYPD's chief of professional standards, says he investigated misconduct within the community response team, a unit often praised by Mayor Adams. Among other things, Pontillo said officers were keeping their body cameras turned off to cover up unconstitutional stops and searches. He says after he raised concerns to then-Commissioner Keishant Sewell in 2023, the matter was discussed at a meeting with Mayor Adams and other top police brass. The same afternoon, Sewell resigned without explanation. Former Chief of Department Jeffrey Madry is also named in the suits. A former top official at the Internal Affairs Bureau, Joseph Veneziano, says he was pushed out of the department after assisting with an investigation into Madry and others who were close to top police brass. Meanwhile, a former top official with the Criminal Task Force Division, Christopher McCormick, says he was pushed out after objecting to Madry and former Deputy Mayor for Public Safety Philip Banks handpicking officers for elite units who were unqualified and unfit. All 4 former officials resigned or retired around the fall of 2023. They say in many cases, moves were made with the express authority of Mayor Adams. In a statement, their attorney said, quote, "The mayor of New York City is supposed to be a public servant, but Mayor Adams has used his position as a racket to benefit himself and his close friends to the detriment of New Yorkers. And when my clients, decorated high-ranking leaders of the NYPD, tried to stop him and his cronies from committing illegal or unethical acts within the department, they got pushed out in retaliation." City Hall, meanwhile, said in a statement, quote, "The Adams administration holds all city employees, including leadership at the NYPD, to the highest standards. We will review the lawsuits." The former officials are seeking lost wages and damages of $5 million each. Bobby Cusa, New York One.
So there you have it from New York One. They covered this beautifully, I believe. This was Serena Townsend, who we've also had on this show. And I believe you go to her website, townsendlaw.com. I believe that's her website to view the actual lawsuit. If you want to read that, I saw Terry Murnane said asked about it. So that was the first thing that happened, right? That in a week was hit with 4 lawsuits from 4 executives claiming a lot of the same things that you heard not only on this show but on this network. John, Eric, Marlon, myself, we've been talking about this at long length, exposing all of this. And here are 4 chiefs that directly are telling you, yeah, everything they're saying, here it is, and we're witnesses to it, and we're victims to it. But then it was the lawsuit that Tom Donlon, the former police commissioner, levied on the NYPD last week through John Scola. John Scola, who's also been on my show. So that lawsuit has 250 pages, is quite long. So I want to play the first video of Eric. The day this hits, he now goes on the Suzanne Miller podcast on WABC, where he's asked about this. So let's play this video. No, that's not it. That's not it. That's not it. It's the third video. That's it.
Those people that may have concerns, those people that are on the fence, that are hearing all these things, they hear about all of these scandals, they hear about your relationship with the White House. I want you to talk to those people and tell them from your mouth, if they're sitting on the fence about all of these things, what would make them overcome their concerns and trust Mayor Adams?
Okay, first, we don't have any charges on against us. There was a lawsuit that was filed.
Good.
By a disgruntled employee, baseless. When you read it, you have to ask yourself, what are you saying here?
What was he there for a minute?
Exactly right. He was there for 3 months.
Wow. And
we tried to find a space after he left the police commissioner role. We tried to find a space for him, and the attorneys will map that out. But also, you can't help but to see this is a political season.
Oh, yeah.
You know, he was gone for 7 months. Why now? So you got to take all of this into perspective. What I must do is say to New Yorkers, the city I inherited, COVID, migrants and asylum seekers, crime, businesses not here, not developing housing, not educating our children, and then do an analysis of where we are now. More jobs in New York in the city's history. More small businesses are operated in the city's history. In individual years 1, 2, and 3, we build more housing in individual years in this city's history. And when you do an analysis of it, by the time we finish with all of our rezoning and other initiatives, we're going to have more housing than Mayor Bloomberg 12 years, Mayor de Blasio 8 years combined.
Yeah, Eric loves to talk about housing and real estate. I wonder why. Many of his best friends are in real estate, putting money in his pocket. Some in Fort Lauderdale, apparently. And I love how Suzanne, and I know Suzanne, and this is WABC, which is now like, pushing the cart for Eric Adams. But she says, oh, Tom Donlon, what was he there for a little bit? The whole station was praising this guy when he was the police commissioner. Which is, I don't know what else to say about that. It's odd that now they want to turn on everyone because the Lord and Master Eric Adams, Mr. I'll do anything for real estate, and almost bend over, if you know what I mean. That's what they're going to say now. Oh, he was only there for a little bit. That's quite funny. Now the next video is going to be from Tarrik Sheppard, who also defamed Tom Donlon. So let's put up Tarrik Sheppard and what he had to say about Tom Donlon's lawsuit.
The men named in the lawsuit is former Deputy Commissioner of Public Information Tarrik Sheppard, who alleges Donlon was in decline.
I think Commissioner Donlon was isolated the moment that he walked in and his phones were taken by the FBI. That created extreme trust issues. He was isolated the moment that he walked in and his phones were taken by the FBI.
We want to turn now to some breaking news out of New York City. CBS News has confirmed that the FBI seized Mayor Eric Adams' electronic devices this week as part of a federal investigation into the mayor's campaign fundraising.
NYPD Commissioner Eddie Caban had his cell phone seized by the feds, according to numerous sources. Part of the expanding criminal investigations into the Adams administration, investigations led by U.S. Attorney Damian Williams. In addition to Commissioner Caban, several NYPD officials at headquarters and at precincts in Manhattan and Queens were told to turn over their phones.
Ingrid Lewis Martin is often seen by Eric Adams' side. She is his chief advisor and has been with him since he was a Brooklyn state senator. Today, she became the latest member of his inner circle to have her phone seized by the feds.
Far, at least 16 people have had their homes searched, their devices seized, or they've been questioned about possible corruption.
Schools Chancellor David Banks left his Upper Manhattan townhouse this morning after issuing a written statement confirming he's cooperating in the investigation.
That's all I've got to say. I'm heading to work.
But sources say investigators are actually focused on City Hall, specifically city contracts. Banks' fiancee, First Deputy Mayor Sheena Wright, surrendered her phones and electronic devices this week after FBI agents came to their home on Wednesday. Other agents arrived at this home in Queens, demanding phones and electronic devices belonging to Phil Banks, David Banks' brother and Deputy Mayor for Public Safety. Terrence Banks, a third Banks brother and private consultant, surrendered his own phones along with top mayoral advisor and retired inspector Tim Pearson.
He was isolated the moment that he walked in and his phones were taken by the FBI. That created extreme trust issues.
Yeah, that video was great because it shows the entire lineage of the Eric Adams Crumbs crew / Conso Frito crew. And Tarrik Sheppard went on in that same interview to say some other disparaging things about Donlon, challenging his mental acuity, which is why he is now being sued for defamation. But then we have Eric Adams himself on Friday is speaking to a crowd, I believe, of Asian people that were trying to, I guess, endorse him in somewhere in Chinatown in Manhattan or somewhere in Manhattan. And, well, let's just see what he said about Tom Donlon there. That's a video, by the way.
Now, mounting an independent run to keep his job, Adams raised over $1.5 million in donations, according to recent campaign fundraising figures. At a private meeting with business leaders on Thursday, a source told New York One that Adams claimed his ex-police commissioner, Tom Donlon, was fired because he was, quote, rapidly deteriorating mentally and refused help. Although Adams did not address those claims on Friday, he said,
I don't want to be biased. Just interview him for 15 minutes. You saw him at press conferences. We know that there was a fast turnaround because to lead the department, there's certain capabilities you must have. So you interview him.
Donlon is suing Adams in federal court, alleging the mayor and his top aides operated the NYPD as a criminal enterprise. His lawyer responding to the new claims.
There was never any mention of cognitive issues. There's no documentation supporting that. It seems like it's a political narrative now for Mayor Adams to try to absolve himself. It's defamatory, and we're planning on taking recourse in court.
Yeah, John Scola is right. And right there, someone mentioned in the comments here, Chronicles of the Collapse. How is weaving a completely false narrative not a sign of cognitive dysfunction in itself? I agree. This guy is Spin City right now. But that's not where that ends. Because then yesterday on Monday, they asked Eric Adams at a press conference, which we'll have another clip about later on, about the very issue again with Tom Donlon. So we can show you this clip of Eric Adams being asked about this yet again.
Lawyer today filed a defamation complaint against you for your accusations about his mental health. He claims you only talked about his cognitive health and neglect from the serious claims in his lawsuit last week. Your response to that new defamation complaint?
I know many of you won't talk about it, but if you see the original report, the original complaint, you see the misspells, you see the grammatical errors, you see the space. It was a rush. And so this would be handled out in court.
Grammatical errors. It was a rush. It's going to be handled in court. This guy's doubling down every which way possible. But now I'm going to show you something that people kind of forgot about, but also where you see the real Eric Adams, and he's a despicable human being, and that he's smeared people in his whole career, first as a cop, then as a state senator, then as a Brooklyn Borough president, and now as the mayor. And he's a despicable human being. So let me play this next video just so you don't forget about something that he's been alleged to have been involved in. And there's another lawsuit on him that people seem to forget, but yet, I don't know, it makes him out to be what we think he is a little bit of a sexual deviant.
Sexual assault allegation against Mayor Adams is now an official lawsuit. In papers filed today, a woman named Lorna Beach Mathura says the mayor exposed himself to her in 1993 and demanded she perform a sex act on him. Beach Mathura says she went to the mayor for help with a workplace issue. She first filed a claim in November, right before the expiration of the Adult Survivors Act. The mayor says he does not know the woman. An attorney for the mayor released a statement that reads, in part, the mayor fully denies these outrageous allegations and the events described here. We expect full vindication in court.
Yeah. So before I play the next video to show you what I'm talking about, there's two comments here that are very important. Special Hagen says, it is incredibly ironic that this group of kleptocratic sociopaths is saying someone has cognitive issues. Meanwhile, Adams claims to be dyslexic himself. If nothing else, he sounds challenged. I 100% agree with you. And then Life After the Job says, Adams made someone who was deemed non-credible to testify as a deputy mayor of public safety, named the chief of department with a history of allegations against women, then another chief of department who should have been collared for crimes he committed. So in reality, who is really in a cognitive decline? I couldn't have said it any better myself. And I mean, look at this. This was Eric Adams last night on X. He puts, it's just 12:09 in the morning, by the way. It's going down. Meet me after school tomorrow. And I reposted this saying, does he have a Tito's and seltzer in his hand, hanging out at Sobro Garden with his favorite self-admitted criminal mob associate, which he used to hang out with all the time, at Con Sofrito? I don't know, because that is rather bizarre. But here's the next video I'm going to play, and the last one in this series. This is Eric Adams on a podcast, and he's talking directly about this sexual assault victim. Remember, he says, believe all women. He was out there banging the drum against Trump in his lawsuit. And then this is what he has to say, because he has a history of smearing people and telling half truths or not even the truth. So let me play this video. So there you have it, because his smear is saying, I don't know this woman. You had Eric Sanders on. I had him on Thursday. And what did he say? I remember Lorna Beach Mathura because she was a police administrative assistant in transit. She was part of the Transit Guardians Fraternal Organization, which Eric Adams was a vice president in. Eric Sanders on the flip side was the president of the NYPD Guardians. Therefore, they know each other. He saw her at the party that they would have, or the meeting they had. So to say he doesn't know her, I didn't do this. And he's mentioned this over and over again with this woman. And then the other day, the NYPD and the law department claim in this lawsuit that it can't go forward right now because they can't find Eric Adams' personnel records. Okay? They have tried to delay everything. Here it is. Adams' sex assault lawsuit stalled as lawyers say Hurricane Sandy destroyed his NYPD personnel files. Meanwhile, here he is. Adams Alley attacked former commissioner's mental acuity in response to suit as Donlon cries foul. Do you see how these two things are very much in line with Eric Adams and his behavior and what he does and how he smears people? Right here, folks, his lawsuit has merit. Scola's lawsuit has merit for defamation. Why? Because he's defaming someone else in another lawsuit. He's the New York City mayor. There's a time to just keep your goddamn mouth shut. And he just doesn't know how to do it because he's never not seen a camera he doesn't like to be in front of. He will go down with this ship. He will remain in the mayor's race. He'll go down. He'll have 10% or less. That's who he is. He will never actually admit, hey, I'm wrong. I hear him too. He goes, oh, I made some mistakes. What, by hiring Tim Pearson and Phil Banks, two guys who were destined to fail, by putting Eddie Caban as a police commissioner and all that corruption that went on under him? What was Sewell doing? That's a question everyone's asking, because again, that rubber stamp that you keep hearing about, right, that Donlon made reference to, that Tarrik Sheppard was rubber stamping things, that may have been going on from the day Keyshawn Sewell was in office, just so you know. So I'm going to actually have now on, without any further ado, a member of the Finest Unfiltered. He's an analytics guy. He's the man behind the scenes, and he's literally breaking this down better than anyone else I know on the internet, and that's the great Marlon Bethel. Marlon, thanks for coming on, because I figured nobody better than you to see and break this all down, because this is just insane, because we've been saying this for so long, and you've been saying it in particular, and yet this guy every day, it's a new thing. This is a new thing every day. What he's just said in the last few days, this is crazy.
Yeah, afternoon, everyone. No, you're not usually used to seeing me here, but yeah, I'm gonna jump in with Sal today, and we're gonna have a good discussion about what's going on today, specifically the latest developments in Tom Donlon's lawsuits against the city of New York, and his latest one, which is the defamation lawsuit for $10 million. But yeah. It confirms a lot of the things we've been saying for the longest while, that this administration is incompetent, and they value loyalty more than they value you holding your oath and you being a good government representative, and someone who's going to work on behalf of the people. Loyalty is much more important than that, and it's much more important than the law. So,
and that first picture that was put up on the screen, by the way, at the New York City Marathon, that was the incident where there was a shoving match, which was reported by who first? Oh, that's right, John McCarry. That's right. And we were told that we were crazy because we also reported on the police academy being vandalized. Oh, that wasn't true until, oh, wait a minute, they're pictures. They are telling the truth. Sal and John are telling the truth. So John reported on that. And that incident happened not only on the Staten Island side, but it happened in the Manhattan side. So they actually referenced that in that lawsuit. So, and that's one of the pictures. That's what Marlon was stating online, is that's where it really, really started falling apart. And it's funny, Marlon, you hear these people talking like Suzanne Miller mentions, oh, yeah, he was just there for a flash. They were praising Tom Donlon. I never heard Eric Adams say Tom Donlon has a mental. He loved this guy. He was standing next to him. Oh, I have a full faith in this police commissioner. Same thing with the other clowns, with John Schell and Tarrik Sheppard and all those guys. And in fact, we mentioned John Schell. There's a video of him, because we've been very critical of people. He was finally asked about this lawsuit on Fox, on Good Day New York, I believe, this morning. So I don't know if we could pull this up. So here we go. Let's hear it.
Former NYPD interim commissioner Tom Donlon intention to file a lawsuit accusing the NYPD essentially of being a criminal enterprise in some way. That words are very serious from someone who was obviously within the department. What is your response to that?
Look, I can't really say much on that. I think it's baseless, and we'll have our day in court one day, and we'll go through it all, and we move on. We got a job to do to keep the city safe.
Wow, what do you think about that, Marlon?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm glad they asked him the question, but I expected no. Someone like John Schell, that's the kind of response I expect, but I'm glad the reporter still asked it, because one of the things we complain about is that, these reporters, they fail to ask these guys tough questions, I mean, isn't the role of the fourth estate, which is the reporters and the media, the role of the fourth estate is to keep the other three estates, government, the other branches of government, right? The fourth estate is the unofficial branch of the government, which it's a term we refer to the media as the media and reporters. It's their job to hold them accountable, to question them. When the system is so deeply entrenched in corruption, it's important for the fourth estate to challenge them on it, because who else is left, And that's why I've said before that we are the fifth estate. So we're the citizen media. And it's our job to kind of challenge reporters on not asking the tough questions and not doing their job. Okay. And I'm glad the reporter at least asked him the question. But going back to that photo, Sal, I said online that photo is, it tells you everything about who was really running the department at that time, without actually needing to say a word, because if you look at the photo, look who's, look at the people who are at the forefront of the photo. You got Kaz there, you got Chell, you got Kinsella, you got Sheppard, and look, where's the PC all the way in the back? All the way in the back.
Yeah, he said the PC's all the way in the back. It's like he's non-existent. Kind of like what Suzanne Miller was saying. He was just there briefly.
It doesn't matter who's there now. If it's Sewell or Caban, none of them are in charge. The real people in charge were these guys. Okay, and it's only now that Tish is starting to exert her influence on the department that we're seeing a lot of them get sidelined, and like, Tarrik was demoted, and no reporters actually asked him that, by the way, but demoted, and then he eventually leaves because he knows that he can't get away with the stuff that he used to. I bet if he could, he would have still be dead, and he'd have still be walking around with his phony 3 stars on his shoulder, by the way.
But and that's the thing, Marlon, because I specifically remember the minute he came out. First of all, as a deputy commissioner, I don't know how you double up as a chief, because he's a commissioner and a chief, and then he comes out, Marlon, he has 3 stars on his chest. So clearly he promoted himself, because there was never a record of this. And in fact, it's in the lawsuit that Donlon claims that when he's supposed to be the one, approving who's going to be promoted or transferred, he doesn't do anything. They're rubber stamping things behind his back. This guy Marino and Tarrik Sheppard are involved, and here's Sheppard showing up. He's at a press conference. He's got 3 stars. Oh, I'm the chief of staff. Who made you that? I'm stunned with his 22 arrests, Tarrik Sheppard.
Yeah, and no reporter has asked him that either, by the way. So he so for all of you guys who are just catching up to speed with what's going on, in Donlon's initial filings, he alleges that Tarrik used his stamp to along with the help of Anthony Marino, that he basically promoted himself to 3 stars. This is while he was acting as the deputy commissioner of public information, which, by the way, has the assimilated 3-star rank in the NYPD. But keep in mind here, that's a civilian position, and there's a difference between being a civilian on the NYPD and a uniformed personnel. And even though you may have the assimilated rank of 3 stars, it's not the same official rank and stature as a or responsibilities as a uniform 3-star chief. Okay, so in those documents, it's alleged that Tarrik promoted himself, and no reporter so far has asked Tarrik. Tarrik is saying that, as a commissioner, he was a 3-star anyway, but nobody has asked him why he was wearing the uniform, and nobody's asked him, okay, so who okayed it? Did Donlon okay it? You know, did Eric Adams okay it? Somebody's got to okay it, right? Or did you do it yourself, as alleged in the court filings? So,
and not only that, with the 3 stars, with get the self promotion with this guy, he allegedly, I believe, Donlon was saying he had 2 shields. He's got the deputy commissioner shield and the chief one, because that's what he was running around with, 2 shields. It said that in the law. I'm speechless. You know, there are cops right now, Marlon, you know, on the job that have 2 shields, right? They have the one they wear at work and the dupe. And the dupe is, you know, the dupe, we call it, is like, it's not the real shield. It's a replica. But cops wear that because when they're off duty, they want to have it on when they have their gun. Technically not allowed to do that because they want you to have your real shield in case you're involved in a shooting with your gun and your ID off duty. But some have this replica dupe shield. This guy has 2 shields of 2 different ranks, which is unheard of, and it's official. It's not like it's a replica. It's not a dupe shield. They're 2 shields of a commissioner and a chief. I've never heard of that ever in the New York City Police Department.
Yeah, and by the way, for those of you who think it's not a big deal, think of it for a second. What was going on? What Kaz was doing, right? If it's not a big deal, then why would Kaz try to blur the line between uniformed and civilian personnel while he was a assistant commissioner and a deputy commissioner of operations? Yeah, there's a difference, and that Tarrik should have never been wearing that uniform. If you're either deputy commissioner of public information, a civilian, or you're uniformed personnel, okay? You can't be both at the same time, and you can't be running around with 2 shields, you know, 2 different positions like that at the same time. So
Rob Lukash, he's a retired deputy chief, co-host of the Executive Perspective. He says right here, when the chief of department goes on a vacation, a 3-star is acting chief of department. They don't wear 4 stars. They would be laughed at, just so people understand. So, you know, I don't understand how that is. I don't know who approved that, but clearly you have an issue where we understanding that these are all, like Eric Sanders said, self-promoters. They're all self-serving, right? And they all thought that they were part of the table of success and who's the waiter and all this stuff. Or don't be on the menu, whatever the hell Kaz Dordry blurred out. They talk like they're in the 70s. They think they're in Harlem, 1970s. It's 2025, and that was 50 plus. I mean, it was ages ago. Why are we even discussing things like that? You know, I just find this is the fact that this guy had 2 shields, promoted himself, has 2 titles apparently, because it doesn't. I don't know what it says. Assistant chief, deputy commissioner. What is he officially in the NYPD? Because that's how you get paid, your pension, or everything. I'm just lost. And now knowing Donlon never approved that. Donlon did not approve that. So how did he do that? And why? No one asked this guy this question, right? He goes on to mention Kaz Daughtry as well, right? And he said this guy was incompetent. He doesn't know what he's doing, right? But what was he saying in there? What does Kaz Daughtry do? Kaz Daughtry, right, And here's again, it says assistant chief, deputy commissioner, deputy chief. This is Sheppard. But where did he get 3 stars? Where would he? Because that technically he's then a bureau chief. That he doesn't have that there, but he has a 3rd star. Bureau chiefs wear 3 stars. So I can't figure this out. No member of service or retired member of service can figure what happened out there. But it's really mind-boggling. But he mentions Kaz Daughtry, and one of the things he mentions in there, and me and you and John and Eric, we always talking about it, how he belittles the people that he was in charge of. And that's why people are very critical when they go on these TV shows and they do the whole clout chasing thing on the internet, which is Kaz Daughtry's main thing. He belittles the cops he supervises, right? And then he tells Donlon, like, oh, you have to be that way. And he had a dream about the whole Roosevelt Avenue gig that he went there to clout chase again. Is one big day. They did everything. Everybody was let out the same night, all the criminals. But he had his little video for the internet. And I find it strange that he is basically saying, look at Kaz Daughtry, and yet here it is with Kaz Daughtry, what we've been telling you, and it's backed up by cops that he's belittling them. And the reason they get upset is because they go on these shows, Dr. Phil, I hate to say it, Sid Rosenberg, Fox 5, and they never ask, you do this X, Y, and Z to these cops. And it's kind of like they don't have a voice. And I believe the cops have a voice here, especially the rank and file, because I don't know how they could withstand this guy breathing down their neck and stomping on him. That's what that lawsuit essentially said about Tom Donlon, what he's saying about Kaz Daughtry.
Yeah. So the problem here is that, and I'll say it here. I give Kaz his respect for having over 300 arrests. Now I'll give it with the caveat that you were Madry's driver for a long time. So, and you had basically the keys to the kingdom. You get your car whenever you want. You have the supervisor's codes whenever you want. So there's no excuse. In fact, you probably should have like 500 arrests right now, because me, who, both me and Sal were active guys, and we had none of those. We didn't have the keys to the kingdom. We had to like scrape and beg for cars, and you make things work. You find ways to maneuver in the precinct. So, but I give him respect for at least getting those arrests, even though he was he was in a position where he really probably didn't really have to. Okay, now I'll say this though, right? I think what he's done has really hurt his career, because if you really wanted to be in a supervisory role or an executive position, you had all the opportunities to take the test and study for the test. You could have easily been put in some administrative unit while you were studying for the sergeant's test. And a guy like him with 300 arrests might have been great for the department if he had stopped taking shortcuts and gone up the proper way. But what do we see about this administration? Everybody loves taking shortcuts. Tarrik took 4 promotions, and then this one where he did it himself, and he's a guy who has, again, 22 arrests for in his career. I mean, you all, it's like they all want the stature and the rank without having to put in the effort needed to get there, put in the work for it. And it's certainly in the case of Tarrik now, you're seeing him trying to rewrite, his reputation on the job. And yeah, I gotta shake my head, because, it's like Adam says in the last Hot 97 video you played, he says he faces a crisis every day. Well, look, who created the crisis? Who created the problem? You guys did, you guys ruined your reputations by all the nonsense,
It's really a clown show. I have a question here and makes sense. And this is actually for you and me, Marlon, because it said Joel Ramirez says, Sal, the question is, who fired you? Who signed your dismissal? Were they just rubber stamping? And now, Marlon, I got to ask that even with you, because we're now learning that they were rubber stamping things. Keyshawn Sewell, I caught on Kaz Daughtry's charges. where he was caught giving misleading statements, that is termination, folks. He only had a 20-day vacation day punishment. He should have been terminated. So they deviated from the disciplinary matrix. There's no letter from the police commissioner, which has to be in there stating why they deviated from it. But the police commissioner, her rubber stamps on the charges, but it was actually signed by Pintos. You know, Chief Pintos, the guy who partied with Jimmy Rodriguez at Con Sofrito all the time. And in my case, it was stamped by her as well. And there was no letter on why they deviated from the matrix, which they clearly did, because even if you want to say you're guilty of criminal association, how do you get terminated for that? There was no letter for that. And in your case, I don't even think there is anything. They just said you're gone. Who stamped this? Because now we know after 5 p.m., Caban's out there and somebody was stamping his name, which is going to come out. So what's up with that?
Yeah, well, yeah. In my case, Sal, am I still fired? Am I fired? I'm still waiting for that letter of termination. You know, I should have. Somebody mentioned in our chat like a couple weeks ago that I should have just showed up for work and be like, I'm here. I'm here. I should have just signed my name in, sign in the book, go sit at my desk, and then be like, I wait for somebody to throw me out, because I don't know if I would. I mean, the only way I know I was fired is because the records state that I was fired non-disciplinary. Now, I never got a termination letter. I had no documents stating that I was terminated. In fact, the pension section never received any documents saying that I was fired, because when I spoke to them, they were like, how do you know you got fired? It was like, we didn't get any documents. And then I was like, wait a second. I had to call personnel, and they told me themselves I'm not getting a letter of termination. By the way, personnel, I have that conversation recorded. And to all those who I ever spoke to in my last days in NYPD, I recorded all those conversations, including, well, to those of you who don't know, I'll let you keep guessing if you were, okay? But the point is that you know, they were all rubber stamping all of this. They were, or figuratively rubber stamping it, because Adams, somebody up there at City Hall, told them to get this done, and these guys just got it done, and they protected their cronies, but they went ahead and did it because, again, they basically got free reign to run the department, and there was none of them were going to speak up about the abuses that this caused and about the issues that this solved. They were just going to do it because, again, it wasn't Sewell running the department, it wasn't Caban running the department, and now we know it definitely wasn't Donlon running the department. It was those 4 guys, those 4 or 5 guys that were it was their show to run, and they got away with everything they wanted. Okay.
Yeah. Tom Joyce, who's going to be on tonight at 7 p.m., by the way, on the 10th Fort Tavern. Right here, he says, I have truly never heard a crazier story than Marlon's. I have people all the time say to me, actually, personally, they call me or they message me and say, the only other guy, they think I'm the craziest termination of all time. And then they say Marlon is right behind you, because it doesn't make any sense how this went down. And I don't know how they did this, because when you start to hear Donlon, it starts to line up that the police commissioner may not have been terminating anyone. There's rubber stamps involved. There's people involved in the background, and they're making all these arbitrary decisions like this clown, Tarrik Sheppard. You know, I'm like, I don't understand this fully. But when we start to analyze this lawsuit and say what you want about Tom Donlon or whatever, there's some mega claims in there that really, like, I'm like, we were right on the money. We were saying this all the time. And here's the police commissioner telling you, no, what these guys were saying, it's all here. All of it. I mean, he got into John Shell. He got into DeMadri, all this craziness that they were doing. And yet there's no media, like real media, talking about this. In fact, I don't know if we have a video with John McCarry. He was talking about this today on X, about how the media is like totally in the tank for this stuff. So I just want to play this real quick.
Let's talk about narrative control in the media, right? So about the 20th corruption scandal breaks out at a city hall in the NYPD, right? And this one's actually huge because you have 4 top chiefs suing, right? They're suing Eric Adams and his top cronies, right? All the guys that are running around electioneering for Eric Adams currently on the media, right? So you have that. That was breaking. They were working on the Keechant Sewell, who ran out. So it's safe to believe that she ran out for the reasons they were saying. Then you have, from a totally separate lawyer, a former police commissioner. This now is the biggest corruption scandal in NYPD history. It's the biggest corruption scandal in New York City history. Bigger than the Tammany Hall days. Never seen anything like this before. And the media is like the corporate, the big boys, right? They're not saying a word about it. Nothing. They let Eric Adams go out. They let Eric Adams and his cronies, John Shelkaz, Daughtry, run onto their networks. We want to talk about this Border Patrol agent that got shot. They don't say how it's related to Eric Adams wanting open borders, promising to keep New York City a sanctuary city, promising to not allow the NYPD to not work with ICE and to give illegals free health care. They don't talk about him wanting to get non-citizens to vote in New York City elections, and he just lost that now in 2025. They don't talk about any of that. They don't even talk about the biggest corruption scandal in New York City history. Right now, are they going to answer the questions? No. Then probably not, right? Kaz Daughtry, he goes on Sid. He goes on Sid and Friends. He goes on Dr. Phil, him and John Shell. They go on Fox. They go on Newsmax, and they run narrative control. We want to talk about this, meaning we want to electioneer for Eric Adams, right? So those questions about how the Border Patrol agent getting shot is directly related to their boss's policies doesn't get brought up. Fine. You're not going to bring those up? You're going to let them blab, 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 blab? Okay. You're not going to ask them a question about the biggest corruption scandal in New York City history? You're not going to ask them a word about it. You're not going to say anything about it, right? And that's my problem. I've interviewed a lot of people. I'm respectful. I ask the questions. Right? We don't agree. I ask a follow-up. They duck the question. I ask the follow-up. They don't answer it. I move on, next topic. But when the question's not even being asked, it's narrative control. And that's why mainstream corporate news is dying industry, because nobody wants to listen to you guys anymore. It's pathetic. It's sad. There is a corruption scandal brewing in the NYPD. It's been brewing for the last 3.5 years under this mayor. It's more and more whistleblowers are coming out every day, corroborating everything that we've been telling you on The Finest Unfiltered for 3 years. Every single thing. Basically narrated the entire thing. Now I understand why we were threatened and were hated by the upper echelon of the NYPD. Now I completely understand, because everything we're saying has been corroborated by a former police commissioner, top chiefs, numerous other members of the NYPD, right? It's all been corroborated. Oh, and the feds too, right? It's been corroborated by them as well, right? So that's one thing. But you guys don't even ask the questions, and that's my problem with major media. That's why I don't listen. That's why the only time I listen is when people send me, hey, listen to this. Hey, listen to that. Because it's pathetic. You let these guys go electioneer and you don't even ask them the questions. Are they going to answer it? Of course they're not. They're going to say it's pending litigation. They're baseless. Whatever the hell they're going to say, let them say it. But ask the damn question. By running narrative control for them, you're complicit. You're basically saying nothing happened. There's nothing even worth to ask a question about, right? I get they're not going to answer it, but it's just a point. And again, to go back to that border agent, him being shot off duty is a direct result of everything, every single thing that Eric Adams supported, that he cheerleaded for, that he, for 3 years of administration, was like completely fine with it and saying, yeah, it's all good, until he got indicted, right? So I'm not buying it. Either should you. Sickening.
Yeah, Marlon, I have to agree with him wholeheartedly. I've seen it over and over again. And this whole thing with the border agent is actually funny now, because Eric Adams, the MAGA candidate for mayor, his administration kind of said, you know, your sanctuary policies led to this, which we stated over and over again. Eric Adams was pro-open borders. He called himself the Biden of Brooklyn, let all the illegals in. He's put them and their shelter, these migrant shelters in working class neighborhoods, not in the elite neighborhoods where his friends and cronies are paying for wine dining and pocket lining this guy. So now you're seeing all of this led up to this one moment, and everyone's up in arms, especially in the Trump administration. But you let this guy, he should be in jail right now. He should have been in a cell right now, Eric Adams, and this would have been over. And for all of those people, remember Marlon, it was saying, oh no, Jumaane Williams. Jumaane Williams would have made a much better mayor right now, finishing up this term, than this corrupt, evil, despicable human being right now calling himself the mayor. I don't know what your thoughts on what John said or what he's alluding to.
Yeah. John is saying the exact same things that about narrative control that I said in the beginning about the role of the fourth estate. You know, the problem is government is so entrenched, and that entrenchment has reached the fourth estate too. Instead of challenging the third estates, the last three estates on them not doing their job, the fourth estate is joined in with them. And that's why like citizen media is getting even bigger now. You know, the voices of the regular people are getting bigger and bigger, and because we're in a world dominated by social media now, they have a problem because we're not going to shut up about these things, you know. And I'll tell you, if you could go back to that picture, Jack, that narrative control is gotten so it's gotten so out of hand, right? Yeah,
get that so city guest thing up. Where is that? Is that a latest post from this thing? Yeah, this thing.
Yeah. Not even 5 minutes into the show, and the bot has already jumped on and posted something in the thread, right? Anytime we say something online, the bot is there. And this first started with John, and then Sal, and then Eric, and now me. And I gotta say, Mayor Adams, I know your people are watching this, right? I gotta say, I'm pretty honored that a guy with less than 1,000 people online followers, I'm a nobody, right? But your bot still thinks that, you know, that they should jump in and interdict and try to change the perception with me. So I said online, I thought that was pretty hilarious, you know. But yeah, that bot is now, anytime you post something about him, the bot is coming on and trying to manipulate that. And it's funny that the bot uses an account that makes it look like it's an official government account, by the way, you know. And I don't think that's coincidental, right? And here's what's funny. I posted up just as the show went live some interesting things about who's behind that bot, right? If you look at, so you go to my latest tweets, Jack. If you dig into the bot and the company behind the bot, who do you come up with? You come up with crypto bros, right? Crypto bros. The same people who are clearly behind Eric Adams, okay, right, are the ones trying to change the perception, and I find that very curious, okay. And like we said before, we're not Luddites, you know. We don't want to go back to living in a cave and living in like the forest, you know. But these industries need to realize that you have somebody who's corrupt and inept at the helm. And that's not good for your business, and it's not good for the people themselves. Okay, it reflects badly on your product when you have front men that are corrupt and incompetent. And if Eric Adams does win re-election, and like I said online, I don't think he wins it by his skill or his popularity. He wins it by these guys manipulating perception and electioneering on his behalf. Okay. And when he becomes, and if he were to get reelected and you do something and he tries to say invest city funds into crypto or pension funds, people are going to look at that sideways. They're not going to look at it like, oh, maybe there's a lot of potential there for the funds. Maybe this will help the funds. They'll look at it like, what's going on here? You know, and they're going to question it. So this is the problem when you have guys who are corrupt and incompetent like that as at the forefront of you know, your initiatives.
And funny you mentioned Brock Pierce. Brock Pierce is another big Trump guy as well, which is where the connections start from Trump to Adams, which is why Trump, I don't know, somebody mentioned he wants Cuomo. No, he wants Eric Adams because of all of this. And just for the record, it's not being discussed. The lawyer who, remember, they abducted a foreign person, I think was Italian, put him in a hotel, and Eric Adams' own security was there acting as, drove the guy to him, and he abducted him. All about crypto, the crypto bro arrest that happened in Manhattan. Yeah, that trial is actually going on as we speak. They were in a court. So that's another reason Eric Adams cannot be elected mayor. It's nothing but shady, criminal. This is like the 1970s for real. I'm being dead honest. It feels like the 1970s with him. I want to shout out to Snake Plissken, who gave $1.99 to the podcast. I'll be having an espresso on you later. He said, con sofrito. I like Sal's pronunciation. Yeah, well, that place is infamous for they needed a hub to have a criminality. That was it. And it was the same faces all the time. And now it's just expanded. It's all over the place. One Police Plaza. Eric, now he goes to Fort Lauderdale, to crypto bros in Fort Lauderdale. You got to ask yourself, Marlon, that whole clout chasers ball that happened in Fort Lauderdale with the Fort Lauderdale Young Republicans. Okay. What the hell? And here he is. That's the guy, Tony Delgado, who, I don't know, he's affiliated with them. He had this clout chasers ball with a bunch of Republicans there, allegedly. And some of them were crypto people in real estate here in Fort Lauderdale, but have businesses in New York. So some people gave him money to have dual residences, or others were given residence in name of their business, meaning they have a business interest in investing in Eric Adams. Because what other guy goes all over the country? He's been to Las Vegas. He went to that crypto thing the day that his pal got arrested. Another one of his donors, the guy that has the case right now, the lawyer. And Eric Adams had a fundraiser there. And now he has one in Fort Lauderdale. Trust me, Fort Lauderdale does not determine who the next New York City mayor is. I don't know what you got to say about that whole clout chaser ball thing. That they gave a bunch of money to this guy, yet they're not even New York City residents. They're not having a party. They're not having an event for Curtis Slee with a Republican. You call yourself a Republican, but you're going to have a Democrat who hates Republicans. He hates everyone other than if you have money. That's who you're going to invite to have an event for. It was bizarre.
Yeah, I gotta wonder if he went to Florida because a lot of the people in New York, a lot of the elites and wealthy in New York are starting to realize that he's that he's no good for the city, and for their interests too. So in Donlon's defamation filings, in the claim, it's stated, it's noted that he went to the Partnership for New York City, which is another one of these public private foundations that exert a lot of control over the city of New York. They are to like the city what the police foundation is for the police department. Wealthy people who look out for their interests, and they kind of funnel their dictates into the city government and into like the police department when it comes to the police foundation. So the fact that he had to go to them and he was kind of explaining to them, Donlon is he has a cognitive decline. He's just speak to him for 15 minutes. That kind of, when I saw that, I thought back to his fundraiser in Florida, and I kind of wonder if the reason why that was in Florida is because the people, a lot of those people in New York City are starting to they're starting to get raised up about him, and so he's having to seek funding elsewhere, like when he went to Vegas for the Bitcoin convention, and as Sal just mentioned, in Florida. And so I have to wonder about that, and I hope it's true, because like I said, Eric Adams is no good for their business interests, and he's no good for the city overall. Because when people start to see all the corruption in they start to wonder, wait, even if these rich guys have a good idea, right? When people look at all the corruption and they see how Eric Adams is just pushing it all down our throats, like the City of Yes plan, right? Which these rich guys are all behind. When Eric Adams pushes it down our throat, we question it, and we push back, and that's why I say it's not good for them to have somebody like this at the helm, because you're gonna get more opposition for ideas that may not necessarily be bad,
Yeah,
So
I'm speechless over this guy's a New York City mayor, and he's touring the country trying to get soliciting donations. Yet, what about New York City residents? He's not the mayor. He's the mayor of the illegals and the elites. That's who he is. He's not the mayor of blue collar Eric. That's laughable. The guy lives in New Jersey and has multiple properties, flies around the world, Turkey, China, and he's all cities for sale. Whatever office he's involved with, it's for sale. But yet he claims to be the blue collar mayor, which is it's unbelievable when he says that. Rafael Martinez, $10 to the podcast. That will be for some espresso later on. He says, "Great show, guys. Keep up the good work." No, thank you, Rafael. We do this for you guys because we're not getting paid by WABC radio. Just so you understand, this is us talking about this stuff. But I actually want to put this up again, where Jack had put up the actual letter from John Scola, his law office, in regards to that defamation suit, because paragraph 3 there was very important because it mentions what Tarrik Sheppard said about Tom Donlon. So right there it says the time when the place where the manner in which the claim arose. July 16, 2025, during a televised appearance on PIX 11 News, former NYPD chief spokesperson Tarrik Sheppard, no longer employed by the city at the time, falsely stated, this is him, quote, "I think Commissioner Donlon was isolated when he walked in and his phones were taken by the FBI. That created extreme trust issues, and he was showing many signs of cognitive issues and not making decisions. Every part of that statement is false. Mr. Donlon's phone were never taken by the FBI. He was not isolated upon becoming commissioner. There is no documentation, no eyewitness, and no internal record suggesting otherwise. The claim that he exhibited many signs of cognitive issues or was unable to make decisions is equally fabricated." And this is good. This is good for John Scola. I'm in a full disclosure, I believe he messaged me the actual article when this happened, and I said, the defamation has to go on Eric and Tarrik Sheppard, and only because there's a pattern with these guys, especially Eric. I showed it today. He smeared a sexual assault victim, his sexual assault victim, that he's browbeating, smearing, and just torturing in court. Delays. The personnel file disappeared in NYPD Hurricane Sandy. That building, as John McCarty, who's in charge of that, the files are in the Bronx. That is a false lie. If they have Frank Serpico's records from the 60s and 70s, Eric Adams is right there. Unless they did something that we don't know about, because never put anything out of reach with the Crumbs crew. They're very dangerous people. But I wanted to also put this up because this press conference that they had, I found something. And Jessica Tisch was talking, the police commissioner. And this is after Kaz Dawdry speaking. And Kaz Dawdry, by the way, is to the left of the screen to her right. And she's addressing the subway surfers because they had the whole drone thing. So let's just hear what she has to say here.
So let's be honest about what's feeding this. The videos, the views, the likes, the fake clout. Social media platforms need to take this content down. So let's be honest about what's feeding this. The videos, the views, the likes, the fake clout. So
yeah, Marlon, you don't find that funny that she's talking, I know about the subway surfers, but I think she's talking directly to Deputy Mayor of Clout Chasing, Kaz Dawdry, that's directly to her right, that how much money has this guy spent in taxpayer dollars putting videos, he's playing bingo, while all this chaos is going on, all these lawsuits, here he is, and again, he's trying to take credit for this drone thing yesterday and at this press conference, and here he is. She's talking, I think, not just about subway surfings, but she's talking about him.
Well, yeah. That's pretty ironic, right? But you know, she's repeated a line that Eric Adams has been saying for a couple months now, that about social media, and like back then, I'd like to point out that subway surfing existed well before social media, because I posted a video months back of in the 1980s. For those of you who missed that episode, you can go on YouTube and type in Star Wars, right? Star Wars was a documentary in the 1980s about graffiti and tagging, and part of that was riding subway surfing. So what these kids used to do is subway surf and try and get to the most extreme place that they can to tag up, right? So the tagging itself was kind of like social media, because all the other kids would see the tag up there and be like, oh, so and so was up there, you know, right? So you know, subway surfing and those extreme things existed well before social media, and it's just now in a digital format, you know. But well, by her saying that, it's kind of like, to me, it's like, what are you saying? You can't solve the problem, you know? You can't do anything about it. I'm like you expect now social media. What are we gonna censor the internet for everything now? You know, I mean, to me, it's like they've had this ongoing issue for well over a year now, and it's you kind of wonder, like, both them and the MTA and the city couldn't get heads together and try and get to a real solution here. Is the depths of the problem with our infrastructure and with the subway so big, right, that they haven't been able to solve this problem? I've said it before, it might just be that big, you know, because again, there's so many issues connected to it. But I'm going back to what I said. Them trying to get social media to censor, I think is them kind of saying that we can't do anything about it. But I also think that they want the internet to censor people like us, the fifth estate, who are criticizing them when they fail to take action on things they should.
I see that every day, because like I could tell by even the views on YouTube. People could also go to my own YouTube channel. That's the Sal Greco Show segments. There's segments. So I could tell you this, Ron, we have views where you'll have 270,000 views on one video, and the very next video has 100 views. And you go, what just happened here? That's what they censor things, even on YouTube. You're not in this algorithm, and this is what they play. And it's not to complain about things, just to show you that, you know, we're not part of the crowd. We're not WABC Radio. We're not Fox News. You're not even CNN. Those guys are all in that algorithm. We're not. And all we're trying to do is, because we speak the truth. You know, I hear Eric Dim said, spot on, Marlon. Joel Ramirez says, how much did they spend on the drones? I got to be honest. I would love to know that drone contract. I know people are looking to that for the documents, or what company it is, because the drone contract would be the icing on the cake. I think you're going to find something in there in regards to all these people, whether it was Pearson, Banks, Kaz Daughtry himself, who's still there, because now he's the deputy mayor of public safety, so he took over for Banks and Pearson on those contracts. So I don't know what they're making on it, but everyone's asking that question. I think it's only a matter of time before the dam breaks, because too much now. You know, these guys are on the way out, and a lot of people are now coming forward. And I suggest that people continue coming forward and keep blowing the whistle. These guys are just a bunch of bullies. They're toothless tigers that hide behind their real estate friends. But once they see that they have no more power, the real estate people they throw you over the boat, because they run the show, not the mayor, not the commissioner, not the chief of department. So once that's over with, then they're going to be all yours. But if you come out and you blow the whistle on things, that'll expedite this a little sooner. Because really, I don't know how much longer taxpayers get. I mean, Marlon, I believe Eric Adams is going to leave quite a substantial bill, just in lawsuits alone. I'm talking about lawsuits. We're not talking about anything else. There's a lot of damage this guy's done. He is going to leave hundreds of millions of dollars in lawsuits and either settlements, fighting cases, or maybe even $1 billion for all we know with all the lawsuits he's involved in. That's unprecedented in 4 years. I've never seen anything like this.
Yeah, well, to go into that question, because I see the chat is talking about the drones and the contracts. So yeah, we've said all along that this is connected to big things, and you guys wouldn't believe how big they are. You know, we'd literally have a 8-hour podcast to discuss how deep the rabbit hole goes.
Oh,
but
yeah.
I've said before that Trump is trying to bring back industry to America. And part of that industry is robotics and drones. Okay. So in my post that I put up, I said that Eric Adams, one of the reasons why I think Eric Adams is going to win is because Eric Adams is he's an agent of change on behalf of the money men and oligarchs behind the agenda, specifically to integrate NYC with crypto, robotics, and technocracy, right? And robotics is so China dominates that right now, especially drones. And Trump wants America to start building things again, like in factories, like drones, right? So Eric Adams is one of those vehicles to introduce that. Now, like we said, we're not Luddites, okay? We don't want to go back to living like living on farms, okay? Society has to progress. I'm sorry, we gotta get out the caves, and we gotta build houses, and we gotta go into the future a little bit, you know. But the problem is the way Eric Adams wants to do it is not the right way. And we've said before that he's corrupt and he's throwing everything down your throats, first of all, without looking at having discussions about the role of civil liberties in having drones that can fly over your house at any point or peek into your window at any moment, right? Does anybody know where? Yeah, I'm sorry. There's a truck just passed by. But does anybody know where the video goes? All that data, right? Is when anytime these cameras pick you up, where does all that data that's not connected to a case go? So there's plenty of questions about it. Just like we had questions about those body cams that they could turn on at any moment from 1PP and spy on you, you know, and look at cops changing in locker rooms. You know, don't think for 1 second that one police plaza that's full with all these sexual deviants won't, you know, decide to click on that body camera while female cops are undressing. Don't think for a second they wouldn't do that. But so the point is, we have concerns about this, and the issue is that you have the way Eric Adams is going about it is wrong. And even if the city wants to have drones, okay, that's fine. But you need to fix the department first, so that when you do operate these drones and these new technologies, you're not operating it from precincts that are falling apart, and you have manpower on the streets to work with the new tech, you know, because it doesn't make sense if you have a sky full of drones, but you have precincts that are short on cops right now, which is the case. So all we're saying is that the way they've been going about things is just wrong, okay? And it doesn't benefit not even the industries behind it or America the way it's happening right now.
Yeah, I see here in the comments, Eddie West asked us, said, Sal and Marlon, good afternoon, brothers. What are the chances Tom Donlon would come on the Finest Unfiltered and talk about his lawsuit? Have you guys reached out? Eddie, I do talk to his lawyer. I mean, I've had John Scholar on. I'm probably going to have him on at a certain point. I don't know when he could come on. That's probably as close. I mean, unless Tom wants to come on, I mean, we're all ears. I'd love to have Tom on and specifically discuss about everything that's in that lawsuit. But maybe it sounds better from John, because John definitely could break everything down. Plus the defamation suit, because now there's 2 lawsuits at once, and it involves so many people, and it's all the cronies and Eric. But definitely, I'm definitely going to have John on at a certain point to discuss that and other suits he has on there. Just other lawsuits you have is just as important, because it's like a pyramid. You know, Donlon might be the top one, and then there's like a tree, and all the other lawsuits fall, and it all involves the same things. Like Tim Pearson's mentioned that, by the way. Remember, Tim Pearson, we learned through John Scola's lawsuits that he, number one, somehow was in charge of discipline and promotions from lieutenant down in the NYPD and the corrections department. So I don't even know how that whole system works, but it just proves the cronyism and nepotism that you were dealing with in the NYPD and on the Eric Adams administration. And we were on top of it. So to answer your question, I'm hoping we have John Scola on soon. I don't know when. Depends when he has the time, because John is a busy guy, and I'm sure everybody wants to hear what he's got to say. Crazy 10-7, $1.99 to the podcast. I'm gonna have espresso later on you. It's okay. Rebecca's got it. Oh, Rebecca.
He's referring to that video where
oh yes
come on, and she was like, yeah, it's okay, Rebecca's right in the law, she got it.
Yes. Special Hagen also says, I wouldn't advise Donlon to come on without his lawyer. It's going to get even more dirty with these guys. I think you're right. That's why I think John would be the excellent. I mean, John knows everything, and he's the right guy to talk and like break this all down, especially the second part. I think the defamation case is it's because it's going to be a high bar to prove it. But then again, I just showed you one instance of Eric Adams, again, smearing a sexual assault victim. So there's precedent just on that alone. Just on that alone, this guy's smearing people. So I don't know, Marlon, you want to say anything else about the lawsuit, everything you've been posting about with Tarrik Sheppard and all that? Because this is wild. I think this could go on for days and weeks. It's 251 pages plus a defamation suit. And if you go to the Finest Unfiltered YouTube channel or on our X or John McCarty's X account, you can watch a two-part, 251 page. It's a breakdown in a narrative version. It's narrated by the AI voice of Barack Obama, who's now Trump says is treasonous. He narrates the two parts of the lawsuit. We had to break it into two parts because it was so long. So you can check that out on the Finest Unfiltered.
Yeah. So I gotta say, like, the fact that like Tarrik is using the same language as Adams is very curious. Like the disgruntled employee and so I think that this is part of the pattern of the city using its proxies to fight these to kind of like fight these lawsuits, to fight these allegations. They always get their proxies involved to kind of discredit you. We saw in the what's happening with Terrell Anderson right now in terms of the issues with the academy and those recruits. What we saw the statement the PBA made where they called him a rogue inspector. That to me, that was a little bit unprecedented. But the city, has a way of getting its proxies, which include like the unions, the certain friendly media and elites to jump in there and try and help them with that perception management. And I believe that's probably a little bit of what's happening with Tarrik, and to an extent, I think government officials themselves are used like that by the people who fund their campaigns and the big money behind them too. And I say this because, as we just talked about prior, the connections to Eric Adams and like crypto and all these industries. And I'd like to also mention that Tarrik, now we mentioned on I think it was Monday's show, that Tarrik was involved in a retail initiative, right? And that retail initiative is connected to a lot of corporations on Wall Street. So as I said on that show, part of the reason why I think Donlon accused Tarrik of he said Tarrik was didn't like him because Tarrik thought that he was going to be appointed PC. And I think part of the reason why is because the big money that was behind Tarrik must have promised him that, So he thought, he was golden and he was on his way to being PC and he could basically do whatever he want. And this would make sense why Eric Adams never reprimanded him for his behavior,
Mm-hmm. That would make sense. I don't think he's ever reprimanded anyone. And he keeps claiming oh, I made mistakes. Dude, you made so many mistakes. You've cost the city millions, if not in the billions, of damage with all the stuff you've done. He doesn't take responsibility. Oh, I need another chance. So you want another chance after you've destroyed the city for 4 years? Quite possibly worse than de Blasio's 8 years. He has nothing to tout his record on. It's all lies. Everything can be pointed at, and it's all lies with this guy. You know, I'm speechless. But I want to give a shout out here. Seth Lowe gave $20 to the podcast. Thank you very much for that. That's plenty of espressos for quite a while, maybe for the week. He says if Adams is reelected, these NYPD cases won't probably get settled. I'd have to say that you probably have a point that he's dragging his feet with everyone's cases, mine, Marlon's, John's, because that's the game he plays. If you were nice with him, he'd still do that because he's saying, why are you doing this to me? Do you know who I am? You kind of see that attitude with him. So, you know, and here Eric Dim says, Sal, no one cares about mainstream media anymore. They love small podcasts. You're right. I don't know. Ulysses Laguera says, do you think Kaz always watches the podcast? I'd have to say, I know for a fact from inside One Police Plaza, they watch the show. Not only do they watch the show, the highest of the highs watches it. Okay? So when we say this, and we've always been right, whether it's Marlon, John, or Eric, or myself, I know this for a fact. So I know you're asking that. I know that they watch the show. They have people, their own people watching it. They have a law, the law department or the city or Tish's legal people watching it, legal bureau. For what? I don't know. You know, maybe you should worry about stopping Kaz Daughtry and them from posting on social media because you clearly don't have a handle on that. But then again, she's the soccer mom running the police department, you know. So I think that's a good time now. I'm going to bring on producer Jack and have Jack give his take. I know you've been hearing this backstage, and you're like, your mind is blown right now. You're like, what the hell's going on in New York City with this guy?
Yeah, well, mind blown is an understatement because it's just absolutely ridiculous that the entire upper echelon of the NYPD was given a free pass in the situation. Now, if Tarrik Sheppard and Donlon actually did almost get in a fight at the marathon, as it's being
100%,
alleged,
100%
how is no one disciplined? Like, isn't this a paramilitary organization? And a paramilitary organization, that has to mean something. Also, I was just sent this photo of John Shell. I think officially we're going to start calling him Jabba the Hutt because they kind of look a little bit alike in their gibberish that they spew out when they're mad. Shell, of course, drunk texts a lot of people. He drunk texted me the other day and asked if he could address me in my inbox. Of course you can address me. You just messaged me. That's what you did, right? At 11 o'clock at night. But yeah, with the incompetent verbiage, I'm sure you guys have noticed he has like these little rings like around the bottom of his eyes from the years of alcohol abuse. So yeah, I mean, there's definitely kind of like a parallel analogy to be made between them.
Yeah, he's Marlon could tell you a lot about all those posts late at night that we used to make memes about. We would wait, you know, somebody had to take that guy's phone away. I mean, it was out of control.
It's insane. But I also have some clarification on the Clout Chasers ball because I've been doing some background research and I wanted to provide a little bit more context and information for those of you who might be aware. So the Florida Federation for Young Republicans is the organization that's affiliated with the Fort Lauderdale Young Republicans. They're affiliated with the Palm Beach Young Republicans, a number of other clubs. But Brandon Ludwig, who's the president of the Florida Young Republicans, different organization, same concept, is the one who spoke out against the Fort Lauderdale Young Republicans having an event with Eric Adams. And of course, Ludwig runs the Florida Young Republicans, which is nationally affiliated. So one of the organizations is state affiliated. The other organization is nationally affiliated. And I would love to have Roger Stone's opinion on this conversation because I look at the Young Republicans kind of the same way I look at Greek life, at colleges and universities around the country. Greek life was originated so that students could meet like-minded people, but over time it kind of evolved into something that it wasn't supposed to be. And the same can be said for the Fort Lauderdale Young Republicans who are like throwing these massive events. This was the night Trump was elected. They threw a 300-person like rager at this club called The Backyard, where they rented it out for themselves. And as you can see, it kind of gives off the aura and the vibe of an adult fraternity party. Like, it doesn't really seem like it's like anything related to fundraising for candidates or like any of those. But listen, like, South Florida is a fun lifestyle, all that good stuff. But the point and the purpose of these organizations has kind of been buried beneath what they're actually doing. I'd love to get you guys' stances on this.
Oh, Marlon, you go first. I know you had a lot to say about that whole Cloud Chasers ball behind the scenes.
Well, that party looks like fun, you know. But the problem is, you can have fun, but I mean, there's a time to get serious about like where this country is headed, and like when you hook up with Eric Adams, it's like you throw all legitimacy out the window, you know. It's one thing to have a party. It's another thing to take that party and become like a party all the time, you know. and when you get hooked up with a guy like Eric Adams, that's what we start thinking, that you're about partying and you're not about being serious. So,
Jack, I kind of got the con sofrito vibes there in the video. All you needed is Jimmy in the middle or something. Bond Brothers, come to the back.
Cameras out.
Yeah, come to the back room. Don't worry about it. And Eric having his birthday cake. Having fun with that. That is unbelievable. I can't speak enough on this clout. This Clout Chasers ball will live in infamy. Just think of the guy came to Fort Lauderdale to have some Clout Chaser event. That it with a group of rogue like they're not even. It's not even a rogue organ. It's not part of the Young Republic. It's not even affiliated with them yet. Here they are, and they were literally clout chasing. The pictures were all over the internet until they got caught. And then who caught them? Me. And then who jumped in it? Roger Stone. And then you're like, wait a minute. Oh, wait. Oh. And then all of a sudden, Tony Delgado says he's an independent. But he never was a Republican because he was always a clout chaser. That's the whole point. What are they doing even clout chasing? And then the people that were there donating money, it's insane. Who is this? Mark John. Was Sal Greco fired? Did he resign? Please write the answer down. I was terminated, my man. I mean, I thought you know that. I was terminated. You can look it up. There's a pending lawsuit. And it was illegal, by the way. So I want to say this to someone else here. Popeye Damn It. He gave $25 to the podcast. Thank you for that. That's going to be like espresso for me, Marlon, and Jack for the next 10 years. Double espresso for everyone. Thank you very much. Popeye Damon, who's very much in the comments and watches the show. He's a big supporter. Thank you for that. Jack, one last thing I want to tell you that I did go to the Marlins game this weekend. I don't know if you saw it. I sent you the picture of it. We won the game in the 10th inning, bottom of the 10th. There was a home run hit by Star Wars, who hit 5 home runs in 2 games. I think he's the first Marlin to do that. There I am. I'm going to tell you what, Lone Depot Park is actually what baseball is supposed to be. It's a fun environment. It gets you away from thinking about Tarrik, Sheppard, and all these corrupt guys.
Well, I tried to get away from all of that this weekend, but I went to a Jupiter Hammerheads game up in Jupiter. And Jupiter, as you know, is a crypto capital for a lot of people in Palm Beach County. So I heard a lot of conversations about Eric Adams. And Marlon, you would be curious and interested in this aspect of things as well. When I've talked to people about this whole event, the first thing I say to them is, do you realize that Eric Adams is a Democrat? And they all say to me, no, he's technically a Democrat. He was elected a Democrat, but now that he's affiliated with Trump and is running as an independent in the mayoral election, he's part of our team now. But I don't really buy that whole philosophy. Like, the guy's a Democrat. He's implemented all of these policies that have ruined various cities throughout South Florida, such as Fort Lauderdale, where he cozies up to the homeless, doesn't support the police, doesn't support infrastructure bills and changes that are needed to fix the subway system, all that good stuff. So when you kind of strip it down policy by policy by policy, he's a Democrat at its core. Yet Republicans down here in South Florida are like drooling all over the guy, which I'll never be able to understand.
Yeah, that's crazy. I'll tell you why it's even more bizarre. because the whole reason they fled to, a lot of these guys fled to Florida was because of guys like Eric Adams, these big government progressives that want to tell you can't even you can't even go 6 feet next to your own family members without wearing a stupid mask. These guys, people like Eric Adams, are the reason why Florida is like one of the only places left in America where you have true freedom. So, and here's what's even nuts, even more crazy. When crypto was first invented, when it was still grassroots, right? The people who believed in crypto thought of it as a way to escape the established financial system, right? Because they thought the established financial system was corrupt, and you as a young guy, you can't get ahead in it, and it was controlled by big government progressives like Eric Adams, Wall Street, and old big money, and here it is that libertarian spirit and that independent spirit is just thrown out the window now. A lot of the people there who were saying that back then are not they don't think about that. All they think about is Wall Street and when am I getting my Lambo, and oh, when could Eric Adams give me this big contract, which is like bizarre, completely bizarre, and completely against the initial spirit, libertarian spirit of crypto.
And Tony Delgado, who ran the event when Donald Trump was getting endorsements for the quote unquote big, beautiful bill, look who was the first person on his Hispanic Society endorsement video.
What's up, America? My name's Tony Delgado, and I'm the CEO and founder of Latino Wall Street.
Bianca Gracia here with
So like there's clearly a connection to all of these people. And I was just talking about kind of like the splitting of hairs that's going on in South Florida right now. Look at this. Brandon Ludwig, who I mentioned, he's the president of the Florida Young Republicans, different than the Florida Federation of Young Republicans, which sponsors the Fort Lauderdale Young Republicans. Over the weekend, he was out in Broward County with the Broward County Young Republicans, which of course are also with the Florida Young Republicans, the nationally accredited organization, getting signatures for Yoni Anahar, who's an attorney, Army veteran that's running for State House in Fort Lauderdale. In the past month alone, I'm pretty sure there have been more campaign dollars in Broward County raised for Eric Adams, a Democrat, as I just mentioned, than anyone running for office in Fort Lauderdale. So this idea of having the same vision and the same goal is clearly not working. And now the organizations are kind of beefing with each other. Ludwig obviously was quick to distance himself from the Fort Lauderdale Young Republicans, but his rebuttal and his antidote to despair is going out and trying to get signatures for someone in the State House. Yet people who are speaking with their money in Las Olas and various other portions of the city where there's a very concentrated region of millionaires are speaking with their money and they're donating to Eric Adams. And as a result, it's like a very counterintuitive mission in a lot of ways. Very ironic in a sense, too.
Yeah, I'm going to say, well, next time one of these Democrats come to Fort Lauderdale to go on Patrick Bet-David's show, look out, because there might be a young Republican event held by Tony Delgado, who he looks like the Florida version of Joey Ayala. I don't know why. Joe Ayala, the detective who runs the Hispanic Society. And I don't know, there's allegations that they're looking into a lot of stuff with the fraternals. I don't know. He might be one of those guys. Maybe he, again, I don't know what they were doing at this party. It really makes no sense. You're a Republican, but having a party for a Democrat who is hated in New York City, has his approval rating, I believe, is 28%. And you're having an event for him in Fort Lauderdale. You call yourself a Republican when there is a Republican running, Curtis Lee. I don't know what to say. I can't wrap my head around that one yet. And everybody's deflecting. Everyone's deflecting, Marlon. I don't know this.
You know what, Sal? I gotta say, with a lot of these Wall Street guys and these Wall Street, New York progressive connections, I gotta say, Florida. I hope these guys don't New York, Florida before I can get down there. No, don't New York my Florida.
we're trying, but I can't, you know, when seeing this guy show up, I really said, oh my God, what the hell was it? And then, but again, it's the Florida Young Republicans and they're a rogue group. So you're going to see a lot of that down here. It's like open season for stuff like that. And you saw, I think the New York Young Republicans made some move. They made some noise in New York City trying to get Mamdani. You're not arresting, you're not deporting this guy. You know, these guys, especially Young Republicans, I don't know what they're trying to achieve. Look, there's an election coming up. Let the people decide what they feel about Mamdani, Cuomo. You're trying to get rid of Mamdani because it's desperate how you're desperate to get Eric Adams and even the New York Young Republicans. Stay away from the whole thing. Mamdani, the people will decide if you think he's what you say he is. I think his policies are like, I'm scratching my head going, I don't even know if any of this is possible. They're looking at it as Mamdani is a terrorist. He's this. No, he's not. He's none of these things. He has ties to things. Yes, they're very questionable, but that's not how you win an election, by ad hominem attacks. So I don't know what they're trying to do. They mentioned the 14th Amendment, the Young Republicans. Look, don't get a bill co-sponsored. It'll never pass. 2/3 of Congress and the Senate will not approve to get Mamdani thrown out of the country or off the ballot. You're stuck. He's gonna be running. November 4th will be the day you decide what New York City goes. You go in the direction of communism, full blown, or you can vote for Curtis Slewa. How about getting behind Curtis Slewa? There's so much money in this that it's really down at the surface that we keep touching on, that they're all trying to jump over. But clearly, there's a reason why they keep going after this Mamdani. I don't know why. Getting him off the ballot, having Congress involved. It's crazy. I love how in this poly market thing, which, by the way, is run by crypto people, which are in Trump's camp, Mamdani's still at 71%. And Eric Adams, who everyone, he's dropping like a rock because he was at 25%. Now he's at 9%. And Cuomo's actually rising, you know. And somebody said, well, you condemn communism. I hate communism. I'm just telling you, New York City might vote for communism. So either you get on the Curtis Slewa bandwagon, or more than likely, that's what you're going to get, because you're not getting Eric Adams. So Juju in the comments, December 31st, what are you going to do? You're going to be out of a job? I don't know what you're going to be doing, because January 1st, 2026, Eric Adams is no longer the mayor. So I hate to say goodbye to your friends, John Schell and all those guys, because they won't have a job either.
And it's really hard to see like a path. I mean, listen, there's still a lot of time left, but it's really hard to see a path for Eric Adams at this point, because like as the lawsuits continue to drop and drop and drop, it's just impossible to ignore this noise of incompetency that's hanging over his head like a cloud on a rainy day. I mean, it's awful. Even in the past couple of weeks, just look at this zigzagging, especially like right here-ish, that is taking place in Poly Market, right? At one point, Eric Adams was well above Andrew Cuomo. Now he sits significantly below him when you consider that Cuomo probably had about a 5-7% chance a couple weeks ago. So, I mean, the problem for Eric Adams right now is that people in Long Island, people in South Florida, Las Olas, cannot vote in New York City unless they somehow find a way to get their voters heard, and Donald Trump makes a call, tries to get Cuomo to drop out and Slewa to, I mean, there has to be some type of knowledge base amongst these young Republicans, these people who are supporting Adams, that there is a way to try and force him into office. But the path is looking more and more and more narrow as people turn on him.
Yeah. And the polls are showing it. The real polls, by the way, were that poll you saw from Harris where Mamdani's at 26%. And mind you, there's a 4%, there's a 4% plus or minus, so it's usually 4% less. That's the margin of error. Was at 26%, and Cuomo 23%, and Slewa 22%. And there's Eric Adams at 10%. Juju 10%, buddy. There's your boy. He's floundering, and it said it right here. And what it says it's a survey of 585 registered New York City voters. They're registered voters. This isn't an X poll where all of you people can vote on it, or Fort Lauderdale Young Republicans. It's registered voters in New York City. That's what you're going to get. And I'm talking about it's also divided equally, meaning if it's 7-1 Democrats and Republicans, there's plenty of independents, but they never poll these people. So this poll shows you what's going to happen, like we've been telling you, come November. That three-way race up top is very close. Mamdani, Sliwa, and Cuomo. It's really up for grabs. If enough people get behind Sliwa, he would win. He can win on grassroots because Eric is going to be at 10% or less. It's over. Juju, I can play a few songs for you. You can play the violin. I don't know what you're going to do when your boy's gone. January, I really don't know. You're wondering about the finest and filthy. I don't know what you're going to do. You might be on suicide watch at that point. But that is the future. And in a real poll, registered voters, that's what you're going to get. If the poll lets everybody vote in it, then, of course, Eric Adams will go up because the Midwestern MAGA influencer is going to send all these towns in to vote for him. You know, I'm from the Midwest, and Trump said Adams, so I'm going to do it. I'm blind. You know, that's what you see. The almost like a cult-like behavior. So, again, that poll is the real deal. What do you got? I see, Jack, you put in what's up for tonight? The 10-4 Tavern's up?
Yeah, tonight we have the 10-4 Tavern with Peter Forcelli and Tom Joyce. They'll be joined by Gary McCarthy, former Assistant Deputy Commissioner for Operations in the NYPD, also spent time with the Newark Police Department, Chicago Police Department as well. So it should be a good show. And then tomorrow, live at 5:05, we'll have the Executive Perspective with Ron Layson and Rob Lukacs. So be sure to tune in.
That's great. Thanks for the update, Jack. Thursday, by the way, I'll have Owen Schroyer on this show, 105 on Thursday. I'm sure everybody's going to want to hear. We'll be talking about a lot of Trump stuff. So you're going to hear about MAGA, Trump, Epstein, all that stuff. I didn't cover it today because obviously me and Marlon, we're going to line up more with what the corruption is that nobody wants to talk about at City Hall in New York City. And, of course, tomorrow morning, 8:05 live, Finest Unfiltered. I'm sure we'll have Marlon on with John and Eric, and also the Friday roundtable should be a good barn burner because there'll probably be even more happening in the news with Eric. So any final thoughts, Marlon?
Yeah, no. It was a good discussion, guys, and I think this is far from being over. And like we said, it's all connected. Because if you read the actual filings and then you go back to what the recent lawsuit from those 4 former chiefs, you read the details and go read Epps' lawsuit, and you've been following all the allegations and of corruption that we've talked about before. It's all connected. You find they say things here that matches up with things there. You know, the chief said they were basically marginalized and shut out and forced out when they reported corruption. And Donlon is telling you that the department was being run by cronyists and loyalists at the top. So you follow the thread, and you realize it's all the same thing. It's just coming from different angles. So this is far from over, and I'm sure we're going to be talking about it again in further updates. And I look forward to be there. And I thank you for having me on again, Sal. So rest of you guys, I'll see you tomorrow.
Yeah, thanks, Marlon, for coming on. People, everyone, follow Marlon at Fire Detective, Instagram, X. You'll also be on the Finest Unfiltered 8:05 tomorrow and on Friday with a roundtable. And there'll be plenty more material. That's all here from South Florida. Thank you all for tuning in. Thanks for the comments. Wonderful today. Juju might be, looking for a job somewhere soon. The December 31st will be his last day. So with that being said, tune in Thursday. Owen Schroyer will be on with me live. We'll be discussing a lot about this Epstein and stuff. So look out for that one. And until then, we're going to let the greatest mayor, according to Juju of all time, maybe on the same level as David Dinkins, Eric Adams, give his infamous word. So signing off from South Florida, which is a sunny place for shady people.
So this is a biblical moment. You know, when Jesus was on the cross, he said, God, forgive them, for they know not what they do. All these Negroes who are asking me to step down, God, forgive them. Are you stupid?